Ladies and gentlemen, this is another huge victory for President Trump. Check out my segment prior to this one on this channel about the Supreme Court and how the Supreme Court blocked and rejected the House Democrats' request for Mueller probe grand jury information. It's only temporary, but I don't think that they're going to eventually side with Democrats because the Mueller probe is over. President Trump was not impeached on a crime. He was impeached on very subjective, opinionated allegations, not legal statutes. They did not impeach President Trump for breaking a legal statute, for committing a crime. That's why they're bluffing and they're lying when they say, oh, he's the most corrupted administration. Great, find a legal statute. Because there's a litany. 18 U.S. Code 793F is just one that the future Democratic nominee could have been impeached on had she won. But she'll run again. Well, she's the nominee. She will be the nominee. They're not going to go with Biden. Okay, if you don't believe me, you can watch my segment from the other day. The DNC communications director literally states, we're not officially nominating Biden. We're not officially nominating Biden to take Trump, and still nobody could believe it. But anyway, so share my Times of Israel article below. Hillary Clinton, not Biden, will be nominee. Share that everywhere on Facebook and Twitter. Subscribe to H.A. Goodman's other channel. And also Bizarro World Goodman. Ladies and gentlemen, Senate confirms Ratcliffe to lead intelligence community. Senate confirms Washington Post John Ratcliffe as next director of national intelligence in sharply divided vote. Wall Street Journal Republican Representative John Ratcliffe confirmed as director of national intelligence. This is huge. Absolutely huge. The Senate on Thursday confirmed Representative John Ratcliffe to be President Trump's Director of National Intelligence, with majority Republicans prevailing over Democrats who objected that the Texas congressman was too partisan and lacked the qualifications for the job. Was James Clapper too partisan? Was Peter Strzok too partisan? Peter Strzok. So don't you understand when Peter Strzok says we'll stop Trump? We'll stop him. Literally writes, we'll stop him. Trump voters are smelly. Trump should lose 1 million to 0. When Andrew McCabe's wife gets close to $1 million from Democratic PACs and Terry McAuliffe for her campaign in Virginia. When you have over 50 anti-Trump messages from Kevin Kleinsmith, the FBI official who just coincidentally, by accident, wrote 15 false statements within FISA applications, or there were 15 examples of irregularities or false statements within the FISA application to go after Carter Page. You never hear about partisanship when it helps Democrats. You also never hear believe when it's Biden being accused. Isn't it interesting how maybe the Democratic Party actually has no value system and they just crave political influence and they just want to win? That's it. The only thing they care about is winning. They're not going to win in 2020. First of all, the absurd ludicrous notion that Biden is going to be the nominee and speak for an hour on the centennial of the 19th Amendment on August 18th is so ridiculous and ludicrous and absurd. They would be committing, they would be deliberately losing the election. So I don't think that they're going to do that, especially when the political and legal future of a great many people rest upon Democrats winning. So I don't think James Comey and Clapper and Brennan and Strzok and Lisa Page and all of them want Biden to lose miserably and not even win the popular vote. President Trump has $255 million. Biden doesn't even have $100 million. It's like $97 million. Okay, and Clinton raised $2 million in one night. In one night, he wasn't even there. It was a Zoom conference. But here, Senate confirms John Ratcliffe. This is Politico. Senate confirms Ratcliffe as Trump's intelligence director. So this is huge. President Trump now essentially has the intelligence community. The ODNI, the Director of National Intelligence, is in charge of summarizing and synthesizing and combining all the intelligence, the wide-ranging intelligence from the top agencies, all 17 of them, or 3 of them in the case of Trump Russia, that didn't have any evidence. They were all moderately to highly confident. But the Director of National Intelligence speaks on behalf of the entire intelligence community. Now you have John Ratcliffe. Now you have someone loyal to the president, just like you had somebody loyal to President Obama. Notice how they don't mind if somebody is loyal to President Obama. How many people, I want to know how many people in President Obama's administration resigned when he was deporting more human beings than any other president ever, or when he was engaged in one of the worst military interventions of all time, in a failed NATO intervention to destroy Libya. I want to know how many people, how many righteous, indignant, moral, ethical Democrats resigned from his administration when the Uranium One deal was going down. So they say, oh, there's nothing to see here. Nobody cares about the emails. Nobody cares about Uranium One. Nobody cares about the failed NATO intervention. Nobody cares that President Obama drank Flint water to literally deceive people. And even the audience was like, we're not going to believe you. And could you imagine if Trump drank Flint water? It would be like, oh my God, Trump deliberately tries to deceive people with poisonous water. He's literally trying to end their lives, literally. And then with a Democrat, it's, he tried hard, it was good, it was nice. Too bad it just wasn't really, the optics weren't that great. He tried hard. Same with the NATO intervention in Libya. It's a worse mistake. You can't win them all. The country's like obliterated. Can't win them all. Democrats are in for a rude awakening. Remember Rick Rude? WWF? They're in for a rude awakening. And it's not going to be... Clinton is going to lose again. It's just a matter of... when the charade ends and she's the nominee, and we do it all over again because there's... the Ukraine's president has a probe now on Biden. Okay, Tara Reade allegations aren't going anywhere. Someone else could accuse Biden of doing the same type of thing. You have the continual gaffes. Biden doesn't know where it seems, I think it's a lot of it is a shtick, but he seems to not know where he is half the time. So, I don't know. The delusional media is so delusional that there are articles still, and there are 2 polls that say that he's losing swing states, 15 swing states, and then there are polls that say he's barely winning, and then he's up by 7 or 6 or 5 nationally, or 3 in terms of favorability ratings. But they don't realize that if Biden isn't far ahead of Trump at this point, and he's not, that lead is going to dwindle. Biden absolutely cannot hold any lead because he's not going to get any better. There's nothing about Biden that says that he's going to actually get better. There's nothing about Biden that says he's going to get, he's going to actually gain more traction. What has he done? So the John Ratcliffe is one of the best things to ever happen. Because you had Richard Grenell should have been, I think that Richard Grenell should have been Director of National Intelligence. He's awesome. And so hopefully there's like a very important position where he can become a high-ranking official within President Trump's administration. But you go from James Clapper, who literally did not, who did not have any certainty. He had no evidence. In fact, if you look at what he actually stated, James Clapper stated the following. James Clapper said, let's see, he said, I never saw any direct empirical evidence that the Trump campaign or someone in it was plotting or conspiring with the Russians to meddle with the election. Only the biggest imbecile would believe that Russia feared Clinton, even though it hacked everything that Clinton touched in terms of a cybersecurity perspective. Every computer allegedly was hacked. Why would Russia fear the Democratic Party when the Democratic Party is like an open window from a cybersecurity perspective. Furthermore, you go from James Clapper, and then you had Dan Coates, and then you had, Dan Coates, and then there was another interim one, then Richard Grenell. And now you have, and Grenell is amazing, but now you have John Ratcliffe. They weren't going to stop the Ratcliffe confirmation because the Senate is run by Republicans. So he has the intelligence community. Trump takes control of the intelligence community, that's not hyperbole. He's taken control of the only thing propping up the Democratic Party for 3 years, because it certainly wasn't Medicare for All or any other major piece of legislation. They still want Americans abroad. They want Americans overseas in endless military conflict. But you see these righteous, self-righteous, indignant progressives and liberals, and they're like, yeah, Trump is everything wrong with society. Ever wonder what they think of foreign policy? Well, we should not do bad things, man. Which side wants Americans in Afghanistan? And which side ignored the fact that President Trump just signed a peace deal there to eventually bring home Americans? So they don't really care. They don't stand for anything. They oppose interventions, or they oppose the concept of military interventions only if it's a Republican. If it's a Democrat, it's fine. If Clinton were president, we would be even more entrenched. We wouldn't be slowly pulling out of these quagmires and endless conflicts. And that's the best thing that President Trump has done. In addition to go up against really corrupt, just corrupt law enforcement officials like James Comey and Clapper. The majority of the FBI, great people. I'm sure the people at the different intelligence agencies are great people. But Clapper and Brennan and Comey and Strzok and McCabe, they obviously set up and framed Trump. And we know this. We know this from the fact that their internal text messages show not just anti-Trump bias, contempt for Trump. And then the same argument is, well, Trump just has loyalists. Well, guess who was loyal to Clinton and Democrats? All the people investigating President Trump. Suddenly, when it's those people, it's, they can have their own opinion, you're allowed to have your own opinion. Oh, okay, unless you're John Ratcliffe, unless you're Richard Grenell, unless you're William Barr, unless you're John Durham. So this is a huge, you go from James Clapper, who didn't have any evidence yet investigated. Okay, when people say, well, unmasking is not a big deal, yes, it is when you have no reason to. Yes, it is when you do so to try to frame and set up an incoming national security advisor. It wasn't a Logan Act violation. He had every right to speak to Sergei Kislyak. And why do you think President Obama waited until the last second to engage in sanctions? In fact, I remember articles saying, well, why isn't he doing anything about Russian interference? The interference was directly tied to the fact that people knew how corrupt Democrats were because they cheated Bernie Sanders, who is turning out to be one of the biggest tools in American history. If I could go back in time, I wouldn't be the biggest Bernie Sanders booster on the internet, according to the Huffington Post, and the unofficial scribe of Sanders' most hardcore voters, according to the Washington Post. If I could write every single article I did for Bernie Sanders for Trump, I wish that could go back in time, and I'm sure most Bernie supporters who know who I am would wish the same thing, which is great, fine with me. I can't believe this guy. Now he's basically giving his delegates to Biden, which the whole thing's a charade anyway. They're all going to give their delegates to Hillary Clinton. But I can't believe he helped foment along without Bernie Sanders, James Clapper couldn't have done what he did. That's just a fact. Without Bernie Sanders refusing to acknowledge he was cheated, and without Bernie Sanders fomenting the same nonsense that Clapper and all of them were spreading, that Trump benefited from Russian help, they had no evidence of anything. And then they used it against Bernie Sanders, and then he was okay with it. Then they cheated him in Iowa just a couple months back. This election is even worse than This primary is even worse than the other primary in 2016. So I don't know. Maybe Bernie Sanders is a good person, a human being. I imagine he's a good human being. But what he's been doing, it's just unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. There's zero fight in the man. Zero fight. He should have simply gone to the Green Party, and in 2 seconds, the Democrats would cave to any demand. Because the one thing Democrats want are voters. Bernie could have gone to the Green Party, said, you better, if you don't pass a Medicare for All bill, I ain't coming back, and my voters won't come back either. And in 2 seconds, they would have passed the Medicare for All bill. Anyway, give me your thoughts below. Trump has taken control of the United States intelligence community. Mazel tov. Give me your thoughts. Thank you so much. Subscribe to H.A. Goodman's other channel right this second, and Bizarro World Goodman below. Thank you.